There we go. Um, so explain to me this curve and why I have to be in in Ohio at least. In Kentucky, it's this curve, and are we under the curve, and are we around or under or beneath the curve? What is this curve?
All right, so they're talking about infection rates and they're how much it's spreading.
Okay.
So you need to be under like the best place for this information where it's going to sound a lot more articulate and someone who knows what the hell they're talking about is if you look up infomullet.com. There's a guy
Okay.
that actually his name's Tim Clancy and he does really good work. He can track all this stuff and very articulate discussion. He does his own little AMA videos a couple times a month, and he can show you the different graphs of each state and how many new cases they're getting, how many people are dying every week from these cases. And he can also say that here currently, the U.S. has finally been in a decline for new cases per day.
Okay.
So it has been in a decline. That is a good thing. Um, but you've recently had two major issues that are going to probably end up causing a spike in COVID cases again. The first one being Memorial Day weekend. We've pretty much reopened up the country.
Yeah.
Tons of people are going out. They're in pools. They're on beaches. They're going to hair salons. You've got reports that over 100 people were infected at Great Clips because exposed, not infected. Sorry, exposed at Great Clips because two of the hairstylists actually had COVID-19.
Okay.
And that's even with still wearing masks and still trying to practice social distancing. You're going to have issues because it's saturation levels in the air too. You can have two people in a room 6 feet apart, but the more they talk, the more particulates get into the air,
Right.
the more it circulates around. So just because you're 6 feet apart and just because you have a mask on, you're going to be okay. You've got a mask, they've got a mask, but somebody else comes in, they don't have a mask, but you're social distancing. This person has it, they don't know they have it, they're an asymptomatic carrier, and they start talking.
Mm-hmm.
They start talking. And you guys are all in this room for a while. And then all three of you end up leaving. Next person comes in, doesn't see anybody in the room, takes their mask off. Stuff's still in the air.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
So just because there's, that's why it's don't touch your face, wear a mask, wash your hands. But then you had all these people going out over Memorial Day weekend, not bothering with any masks, not bothering with social distancing. They're like, oh, I'm young, I'm healthy, whatever. But they're going to take it home to immunocompromised family members. They're going to take it through, this is how it crosses state lines. So you might have a state that doesn't have very many breakouts right now, and they've been doing really well. But somebody went on vacation to a state that is having a lot of issues. Because in my state, they're fixing our numbers. We've caught them at it multiple times.
okay.
Like they keep having accidents with their graphing. Um, Again, they've been caught multiple times fixing the numbers. They're getting called out on it like they should be. But again, you have somebody travel from an area that has a low infection rate to an area that has a higher infection rate, and they bring it back.
Mm-hmm.
They were able to track this from before the shutdown with spring break in Florida. And they were able to track how just far up it spread the coastline when people went home after spring break.
Right.
So there's a very good chance that we're going to have a secondary outbreak because also historically speaking, there's always been about 2 waves when something big hits.
Right.
And so it's very, very probable that we're going to end up having a second wave, especially now that we also have protests going, on across the country.
Right.
So, and I've seen a mix in the different videos and footage and everything of, people wearing masks and trying to social distance and people not. You've got some protests that have been very, very peaceful. They've managed to social distance and keep masks on and they're just not there quietly. And other places, you get hit in the face with pepper spray, you're going to take off your mask.
Right.
So now you've got that problem. You know, like you have a lot of them where they started out in masks, but then they got hit with pepper spray or bullets, you know, the pepper bullets or whatever, and they're having to take those masks off because those masks are now holding that chemical near their face. And they weren't able to think ahead, or they didn't have a spare that they can then put on, you know, to continue with that.
Okay.
I'm kind of amazed I haven't seen more people wearing face shields at the protest, with how many, you know, people have been cranking out the 3D printed face shields.
Yes.
I'm a little surprised. I thought that would have been a good idea, but you know, so I'm definitely anticipating a second wave of this,
Okay.
which is going to put a lot of strain on the healthcare system, because you've already had, you know, a lot of places dealing with a lack of supplies, but now, because, you know, we have had some people, you know, that are properly staying home, they're not going to the ER as much, they're not going to the hospital, and so we're actually been furloughing medical workers.
Right. Yeah. I've seen
So
the numbers there, and I'm
yeah,
like,
and that's kind of scary, because now you have a lot of protests going on, you've got injuries happening,
mm-hmm.
and so, you know, you're reflooding your emergency rooms. Well, guess what else you also have still coming into an emergency room? Positive COVID cases.
Yeah. And I mean, for instance, my school sent out an email. We're back in classes face to face on August 17th. Like, that's kind of scary, especially to me. I kind of looked at that and went, you're really gonna bring us back in? Like, I don't know why it's being treated like it was a really, really rough thing, and then all of a sudden the summer hit, and oh well, we're good. I don't see. I think that's a little foolish to believe that it wouldn't like do that.
How
Like
very
research.
American of us to just be bored and done with something, decide it's no longer a big deal.
Well, I mean, like, well, okay, so I looked up some information on like the Spanish flu, and we had to let that die out. We didn't find a vaccine for it. We just let it kill a bunch of people until we found an immunity for it. Is that where this is going?
I would hope not.
Like, in your opinion, is this where this is going? At 100,000 dead, and are we just gonna ride it out for the next? I wouldn't say the 5 years of the Spanish flu. I'd say 2 years.
All right, so a couple of things. 2 years is a much more probable prediction, but at the same time, you do have multiple teams worldwide that are working on trying to find a vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
And our science is quite a bit more advanced than it was when Spanish flu was, you know, being a larger problem. So hopefully, yes, we'll get a vaccine, or we'll get a better way of treating it. And I just forgot the name of the drug that they actually have been introducing.
It isn't
Not the one that was being touted originally, a different one.
Okay.
And there is a correlation, could be a coincidence, that our curve started going down after they introduced using that drug as part of treatment.
Okay.
Again, could be a coincidence, could be really cool, who knows? But so it's, for a vaccine, you're still looking at about 18 months for a working vaccine.
Is that FDA regulations, or is that just?
I wouldn't know on the regulations part. I'd actually have to look that particular part up.
Or like testing, like it takes.
Well, okay, so you have to research it. You have to run your entire, you know, scientific process on it.
Okay.
have controls, tests, collect as much data as you possibly can.
Okay.
So it's not one of those things that, they're trying to rush a vaccine, and some things will probably get a little bit, relaxed and as far as regulations go, but you still have to make sure that it's not something that, you're going to harm your population with by using it. So you still need to test it. You still need to research it. You still need, and data is still coming in.
Right. Right. I mean, well, I want to say that like other countries that are doing better, I believe the PPE, personal protective equipment, is more readily available than it is here.
Different countries have been handling it differently. Like Sweden did not handle this well.
No.
Germany handled it well, but they locked down pretty hard, pretty quick. Australia locked down really hard, real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And Germany reopened and started seeing issues again, and so they shut down. It's what Tim Clancy likes to call the hammer and the dance.
Okay.
Beat the shit out of it, dance around it. He's a lot more eloquent with it than that. There's more to it. But
okay.
It's because herd immunity is not going to be a thing. Herd immunity.
Okay.
Letting people get infected with it. That's not going to be a feasible way of actually getting rid of this and dealing with it for years. Like that's not one of those things where, yeah, just let everybody go get it and then they'll be fine. No.
Okay. So the whole, I've seen these, I don't know if you've seen the commercials. If you haven't had it and you're this age and you're healthy, come here and basically we'll give it to you and try to work out a vaccine. Like
so I know that there was they did do a request for something like that in England, where they were actually trying to ask younger people to come and get it so that they could study it, and they were compensating them for getting it.
Right. I was kind
But
of
it was going to be in a completely controlled setting, like, we've got medical teams, we're giving it to you, or
okay.
There was a group of monkeys that stole a bunch of blood lab vials in India.
Okay. Okay. Um
That's just some comedy for you right there.
well, yeah. I mean, well, you have to look at the and one more question, okay? We know the hydrochloroquine doesn't work. Like, but what is why that push? You know why that push for the hydrochloroquine? I can't even say the word. Did it seem like it was a really quick fix and then it wasn't? Or did you, am I asking a question you're not prepared for?
You're asking a question I'm not prepared for.
Okay. Then I'll go to, do you know anything about the children and what's going on there? The ones that had it and now are going through this respiratory distress.
So I've only seen a couple of reports on the kids that have had it. I've not personally had to work with any children that have had it.
Okay.
Thankfully. All the patients that I've had it have all been adults that were older or with pre-existing issues.
Okay.
So in that regard, I've been lucky. But they are also very here locally. They're being very adamant that children are not allowed into the main hospital. They have to go to the children's hospital only.
Oh, okay.
So
All right.
we've got two hospitals that are in my local area that are right next to each other, and the I actually had to listen to a nurse on the phone trying to convince a mother to bring her child into the ER for an injury because the mother was worried about COVID. And the nurse was going, no, ma'am, we've had none of that here. The children come in through here. We screen everybody. Please bring your child into the ER. They need medical attention. we've had no issues with COVID in our ER.
Excellent.
So I'm not really, I haven't seen a whole lot with the kids having it,
Okay.
but pretty much everyone that's had it that I know of is having lingering issues with lung capacity, getting out of breath, still being incredibly tired. The person that I know that had it, he's about 6 or 7 weeks post hospitalization and is just now starting to feel that he has his pre-illness lung capacity back.
So, okay.
And that means being able to hold on a conversation for more than an hour.
Man.
Like a steady talking nonstop
Right.
without getting out of breath or winded.
So this is a lot. I didn't really see I see the stay at home thing, but I didn't see how important it really was or how dangerous it really was until like that kind of hit home. That 6-week lung capacity. Like,
yeah, and he had a moderate case.
okay. So there are degrees of cases. There's a
Oh yeah. Okay, so there are some people that you get a flu. You get you're having all the flu-like symptoms, you're not feeling well. It feels like you kind of can't breathe, but you're still managing it. You're not to the point where you're like, I think I need to go to the ER. This is really bad.
okay.
And you go to the ER, they check you out, they test you, guess what? Congratulations, you're positive. But you're not bad enough that we can like admit you to the hospital.
So go home and
they send you home.
Right.
And then they're like, social distance. You have to social distance. You cannot go out. You cannot do any of this stuff. If you start to get worse, you have to call us and we will, probably admit you at that point in time. But that was kind of like the staggering it to try and make sure that we didn't overload, our nursing staff and everything like that.
Okay.
So it's one of those, go home, see if you can kick it. Those people are being able to kick it, not feel sick after about 2 weeks. But they're still giving in reports of, it's difficult for me to breathe still. I'm getting winded when I go for walks, talk for too long. And it took, those people close to a month to really feel like they were 100% again. This is not one of those, I had a stomach bug or I had, a flu and I felt like shit for about a week and then I was fine.
Okay.
This is not one of those kind of illnesses. You're going to feel this. They're already showing studies and signs of it affecting internal organs with damage like your kidneys.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's one of those things where, like I said, they're still gathering data on it. There's multiple different strains of this now. And each strain is going to mutate and it's going to change and it's going to affect the body in a different way.
So 14 days is not going to, is wishful thinking?
That's my old case.
Okay. By case, it's a case by case scenario.
Everyone's body is going to react to it differently.
Okay.
And then a moderate case, he was in the hospital. He was never intubated. But he felt like shit pretty much the whole time. He felt like he was drowning in his own lungs and, constant difficulty breathing. When they finally released him from the hospital, he's still sleeping. He was calling it the COVID coma because he was sleeping more than he was doing anything else. He'd be able to be awake for about 2 or 3 hours at a time max before he had to go sleep for 4 or 5.
Okay.
And would get winded just walking from one end of his yard to the other at first.
Okay. This has been very informative. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Now, severe cases, someone who's got to be intubated, they're making you do video calls with your loved ones to say goodbye before intubation, if you're capable.
Okay.
Like they're asking you what you want your final, what's your will, what's this, who's the executor of your estate, do you want, they're actually asking people if they want to be put on do not resuscitate orders before they even put them on ventilators. And giving them a chance to say goodbye to people, because once you go on the ventilator, your percentage of getting off of it is not good.
Okay.
To the point that it's so.
I know a lot of the public has probably never heard that before. Like, a great deal of anybody who's going to listen to this is not going to understand that once they go in and they're really sick, they're going to be asked questions like that. Like, I don't think we as a nation grasp how serious this is.
And it's serious to the point that when my friend was in the hospital, they would come into his room as little as possible. Like his door was always shut. They would, kind of talk to him through the window of his room. If they didn't have to come into his room for something, they didn't.
Right.
And then they were making sure that just one person came into that room to take care of him.
Okay, so there's one nurse per so many patients.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
At one of the local hospitals that I deal with, they had one floor for COVID, and they had to convert another floor for COVID.
Okay.
Each individual room has plastic wrap around it, like they make doorways,
Mm-hmm.
and then every single room has a large box with the red biohazard bags and a station where you have to completely suit up before you can go into this room. And then once you're out of the room, you have to unsuit and throw everything away. That's when you have supplies.
Okay.
When you don't have supplies, guess what happens? I've been in the same mask for a week. 2, actually. I've had the same mask for 2 weeks.
Well, where's okay? So where's where in the I don't know the word for it. I'm trying to say, where does that problem lie? Is it the companies making the products, or is it just?
Well, okay, so from a manufacturer, just to be realistic, you're used to having hospitals order X amount of product, right? So you aren't going to just make a ton of that product and have it just sitting on the shelves. You're going to have, things that you get more orders for, you're going to make more of. So you're going to have your standard stock, and when a pandemic hits, there's going to be more ordering than what is standard.
Right.
So you don't have the product already made. And it takes time to get all that product out. But while you're making new product, you've got all these different, hospitals and clinics and stuff ordering way more than they ever have. So yeah, stock just disappears.
And then the whole ventilator issue with Ford and I forget the other place that's making them. Like we didn't have enough ventilators.
Yeah.
Like,
because there's never been that much of a demand. Like the demand hasn't been that high.
Okay. All right. Huh.
So it's not one of those, yes, we were unprepared.
Okay, that would answer that question. We were completely unprepared.
We were not prepared for pandemic. And most places weren't thinking, hey, I need to order more stuff in advance because we're about to have a pandemic. But then when everybody goes and orders all at once, there goes all the supply.
Right. And then you have other countries that are also ordering off that supply chain, or so I believe.
I spoke to a doctor in Algeria. All of their supply is being donated.
Oh, okay.
Volunteer organizations, charity organizations, all of their PPE right now is being donated by that. They can't get a hold of any of it.
Okay.
So when they have PPE, it's because organizations like the World Health Organization have donated shit to them.
Okay. So it's the World Health Organization that is pushing the get everybody their PPE, getting their.
Not just them. I mean, it's any kind of charity organization that could get access to this stuff.
Okay.
There's more than just the World Health Organization. There's Doctors Without Borders, who actually went into I believe it was Doctors Without Borders that came here for the first time ever, and they went to our Native American reservations.
Well, how are they handling it? Because that would pretty much devastate a reservation.
Well, so when they asked for testing kits and supplies, guess what they were sent?
I don't know.
Body bags.
Really?
Yeah, they asked for help from our own government, and that's what they were sent. They weren't sent testing kits and supplies. They were sent body bags.
Okay. Well, we'll let that sink in for a minute. Yeah, it's been very informative. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
I believe so. We're if we're smart, we're going to wash our hands. We're going to put on masks. We're going to stay 6 feet apart. We're going to adhere to the regulations and help this spread. Try to help contain it.
You're not really containing it at this point. You're just trying to slow it down.
Yeah. Trying to.
Which, again, you've got those two major factors that are going to probably cause a secondary spike.
Okay.
And, you know, I 100% believe that people should be going out and they should be making themselves heard, and just to try and do it as safely as they possibly can.
Okay.
So if you're going to go out, try and have goggles, have multiple masks that you can change into.
Okay.
Have gloves. They don't even need to be like medical gloves. Just wear gloves. And and another thing that I heard, and this is going to be a little weird because it has nothing to do with COVID. If you get an injury, please don't pack anything in it. I've seen the things going around on Facebook for the different, take tampons with you, and any dark leafy green plant can be used to pack a wound. Please don't do that. You are not in an actual third world combat zone.
Right.
You're gonna be close to an ER. You're gonna be within 15-20 minutes of an ER. Just cover and apply pressure and go to the ER. I assure you, medical staff are well aware of what is going to be coming through the door. They are prepping. They are there to help you, and they don't care what side of the line you are on.
Dark green leafy plants.
I saw that as a thing. Any dark leafy green plant, I'm like, I don't think people know what color some of the poisonous plants are.
Right.
Not a good idea, kids.
Yeah. Wow, that would be poison oak would be kind of rough.
Yeah, so please just don't put anything in any holes or cuts or lacerations, or just don't.
All right. Well, I thank you, and again, you've been very informative. You own Molly Leather.
Molly's
Leather. And that's going to be up on the Facebook, and you can check that out. Farrell, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. At some point in time, if you'd like to have a talk about advocacy for minorities, I would love to have a conversation about that.
Okay.
We can probably plan that in the future at some point.
Yes, please.
All right.
All righty.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.